And with that, President Biden wraps up his press conference in which he outlined new measures the administration is taking in the fight against COVID-19. Some of the highlights, something that President Biden really hammered home was that this is not a return to March 2020 when we started having lockdowns, when we started working from home. He says there are three primary differences. Let me bring myself back on camera here. Three primary differences between now and March 2020. The first is that 200 million Americans are now fully vaccinated. He made a big pitch for folks to get the booster. He says he got his booster shot. So did President Trump. President Trump announced a couple weeks ago, or I think earlier this week actually, that he had also received his booster shot. I'm boosted as well, got mine about 2 weeks ago. The second one was that they're prepared. We know how to fight COVID, even if it is a new variant. We have the medical supplies ready to go, a lot more knowledge about the foe that we face. And third was keeping kids in school and knowing how to keep students safe, because that was hard. If you remember March 2020, that's when schools started shutting down and kids didn't go back into those classrooms for months or sometimes even more than a year. There are still a lot of kids who are attending school virtually right now. This press conference comes as Omicron is just sweeping across the United States. According to local data, it's something like 85% of the local cases in the greater Houston area. That was according to Houston Methodist. Harris County also marked the first death from the Omicron variant, a man in his 50s who had an underlying health condition and who was unvaccinated. And there is this big push for folks to get vaccinated. President Biden's words that folks who are fully vaccinated should feel highly protected, especially if they have the booster. But those who aren't are at risk of contracting the virus, of getting sick, of ending up in the hospital. According to the CDC, your chances of dying from this virus are 14 times higher if you are not vaccinated. Going over some of the other highlights from this press conference, President Biden talked about a stepped-up strategy to combat Omicron specifically. That includes increasing vaccination sites. I will encourage you, if you want to get tested, if you need a vaccine, you can text those words, vaccine, or test to 713-526-1111. Again, that's 713-526-1111. That's going to send back links for you that we have put together. So local resources for tests, local resources for vaccines, all of that. President Biden also announced that 500 million at-home tests are going to be available for folks for free. And starting next month, you will be able to order those, to request those via a website, and they will be sent to you. So you can do those at-home tests. We're hearing that they're flying off the shelves. So backstory, if you're familiar with our chats here on the digital channels for KHOU 11, you probably noticed that I have been gone for a bit. Part of that was vacation, but before that, I found out that I was COVID positive. I didn't really have any symptoms besides a runny nose. What got me was when I lost my taste and smell. And that didn't happen for about 6 days after I first started getting that runny nose. So I went and got a rapid test, a PCR test. The rapid test that I got done at urgent care said that I was positive, but I did an at-home test to verify. That said I was positive. Something else we've learned is that those at-home tests that are available at your favorite pharmacy are just as accurate as the rapid tests that you're taking at testing sites like in urgent care. And again, there are a lot of those sites available in the greater Houston area. I've been to a handful as I've gone through this journey over the past few weeks. Happy to say I have tested negative, and the CDC now says once those COVID symptoms start, you only have to isolate for 10 days. Now, whether or not your employer wants you back in the building after those 10 days, that's a decision that your employer gets to make. Mine preferred to wait for a negative test. So the curative is the one I've gone to. Again, also I went to an urgent care. It's very easy to find a testing site. Finally, President Biden announced that the government will provide troops for overwhelmed hospitals just to help with that surge, which we are witnessing again here in the Houston area. Nothing compared to what they're seeing in the UK, but we have seen historically over the past 2 years that when there's a big surge there, it takes a couple of weeks before we see the same thing here. We have a whole lot of information on khou.com if you want to dig in a little deeper and look at what each of these points that President Biden outlined really means for you and access. Again, you can watch that press conference on any of our digital channels, Facebook, YouTube, and always on Roku and Fire TV.